Hi, I'm Nate Brown. In this drum lesson, I'm going to teach you the main beats to the song Don't Stop Believing by Journey. Make sure you print out the sheet music for this, or you can get it in the July 2010 issue of Drum Magazine. In the sheet music, you're going to see parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, and each part is a 4-measure repeating pattern. Those are the main parts that Steve Smith plays throughout the song. Though all 4 parts are just eighth notes, it becomes difficult because Steve Smith is actually playing open-handed. And what open-handed means is that instead of having your right hand on the hi-hat and your left on the snare and crossing your hands, you're going to have it open so that the left is on the hi-hat and the right is on the snare. That can be difficult to get used to, so as always, I recommend starting slowly and working your way up as you progress through each part. All right, part 1 starts with a bass and a crash, and since we are playing open-handed, you're going to hit that crash with the left hand. The next thing written is an X that's on the top line, and in this notation, that represents the hi-hat. After that, you have a snare drum, which is in the third space up. Look a little further on to count 4. You're going to see a note that's written on the 4th line, and that is the medium tom. So the first measure sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and it's best to get comfortable with that over and over before you go on to the next measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Next measure starts simple. 1 and 2 and 3. Now you have a high tom. That note on the 4th space is a high tom, and then on the and of 4, you have a note on the 2nd space. That's the low tom. So the second measure sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I'll do it again slowly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And I want you to notice throughout all 4 parts, the bass drum is playing a solid 1, 2, 3, 4. It really drives the rhythm. Measures 3 and 4 of part 1 are the same as measures 1 and 2. I'm going to play part 1 through a couple times at tempo, which is 120 beats per minute. Now I'm going to play it again at a slower tempo so it's easier to follow along. I'm going to play it at 100 beats per minute. All right, on to part 2. Part 2 adds the ride cymbal bell, or the dome of the ride cymbal. And whenever you see the diamond note head above that top line, that indicates you're going to hit the ride cymbal bell. Measure 1 sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And I want you to notice that the pattern is the same as in part 1, measure 1. The only thing is we're adding something now, which is the ride bell. So everything stays the same, but we're going to add the ride bell. Measure 2 sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Do it again slower. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And one more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Just a tip on hitting the ride bell. I don't like to hit it with the tip of the stick. I move down on the stick a little bit to the more on the shaft of the stick and hit it. It gives me a louder sound, but it also is a little easier to hit the bell. Just like in part 1, measures 3 and 4 are the same as measures 1 and 2. I'm going to play part 2 for you a couple times through at tempo, which is 120 beats per minute. Now I'll play it again at 100 beats per minute. On to part 3. Part 3 keeps the same pattern that you had in part 2, but you're going to add 2 more cymbal bells. The first measure is the same. The second measure is where you add the cymbal bells on 1 and. So measure 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. The rest of the measure is the same. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. As with the others, measures 3 and 4 are the same as measures 1 and 2. So I'm going to play this through for you at normal tempo, 120 beats per minute. Now I'm going to slow it down to 100 beats per minute. All right, on to part 4. Part 4, the first measure is the same as in part 3, except that you're going to be hitting the crash cymbal. And again, just like in part 1, it's going to be with the left stick. The beginning of measure 2 is the same. When you get to count 3 and 4 and, it changes. You have the ride dome on 3, 3, but after that, you're not going to have the high tom like you had in part 3. It's going to be hi-hat. On 4 is a snare, 4 and. So this is going to sound like this. 3 and 4 and. 3 and 4 and. One last time. 3 and 4 and. Measures 1 and 2 together slowly sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. Unlike in the other parts, measures 3 and 4 do not repeat measures 1 and 2. So let's look at measure 3 closely. We've got the ride bell on the count and of 2 and count 3. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if you just think, hey, I've got a snare drum on count 2 and a tom on count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Makes it a little easier. Measure 4, the first half is 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2 and. A little slower. 1 and 2 and. You've got 2 ride cymbal bells. 3 and 4 and starts with the ride cymbal bell. 3, and then you're going to go with the left stick on the and. 4 is on the snare, and an and right stick on the low tom. So those toms go left, right, right, left, right, right, and 4 and 4 and. So you might want to practice that. And 4 and. So starting at 3, 3 and 4 and don't forget to hit that bass drum on 4 because that drives the rhythm. I'm going to play measure 4 slowly for you. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. A little slower. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. All right, I'm going to play part 4 at tempo a couple times through, 120 beats per minute. And now I'll slow it down to 100 beats per minute. And those are the 4 main parts that Steve Smith plays in Journey's Don't Stop Believing. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Keep drumming.